Perfect. Thanks very much, Maureen, and thanks a million to the network for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully I can live up to the other two presentations that we've seen this evening.
You would, of course, don't think about it twice.
Perfect. Let me just present and then share. Perfect. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks a million. Okay, so once again, thanks Mel for having me this evening. So I titled my presentation, The Values That Shape My Practice, My Research and My Teaching. So just a bit about who I am. So my name is Ciara Mc Kevitt and I'm a maths and applied maths teacher in County Monaghan, but I'm living outside Dundalk in County Louth in Ireland. And I'm a graduate from the Bachelor of Maths and Education programme in the University of Galway, and I'm currently in my 4th year of my PhD in education under the supervision of Professor Cornelia Connolly, who's here with us this evening. So, the values that shape my practice, research and my teaching. So this is just an outline of my presentation for this evening. So I'll first look at the moments that sparked my inquiry, and then I look at the values that shape my teaching and why I pick these values both professionally and personally, and how I implement them into the classroom. So where my journey began. So as a classroom teacher, I often observed critical moments in my classroom. So I started teaching in 2020 during COVID. So I kind of noticed that like engagement and resilience, particularly in my subject of maths, just was lacking. It wasn't there. Also, there was levels of anxiety being seen through maths and just in school in general. So I began to question whether my actions as a teacher truly aligned with my values. So how did I respond to the students when they were struggling with the concepts in the classroom? Was I shown the integrity and fairness that I was taught to show in the classroom? So with this in mind, then I began to plan my research, and this was all grounded in my values. So I sought out ways to construct learning with my students by prioritising a holistic learning environment with respectful relationships and safe, open classroom climates where all the students felt seen and heard, and they all had their own voice. So my research then took place. It was an action research, and it gave me a framework to examine how my values lived. The core concept was the reflection, which I'll speak about throughout this through this presentation, and both reflection from me and from the students. So my research there, it's the impact of gamification on students' maths resilience, maths anxiety, and their mathematical attitudes. So when I noticed that the resilience and anxiety was an issue in the classroom, I decided I would develop this grit math model, and it drew from various different theories, such as the gamification construct, resilience construct, the reflection idea, the TPAC and self-determination theory, all to form this model that included gamification along with reflective journals that the students partook in. So I carried out an action research over 2 academic years. It was 4 intervention cycles, and I collected a mixed methods. So I had quantitative data that was collected through surveys using the Maths Resilience Scale and the Maths Anxiety Scale, and then qualitative data through reflective journals and semi-structured interviews. Alongside this, the students engaged in both of these, whereas I kept my own reflective journal. So my findings then were compared from pre and post intervention, and I made my refinements to the cycles as I progressed on through the interventions. Oh, I have to use this one. Perfect. So the values in action research then are not just abstract ideas that I have, but they're what I use in the classroom that guide my principles and shape how my research and more so my teaching is carried out. So they're referred to as the foundational principles that underpin collaborative inquiry aimed at fostering personal, professional and organisational learning and transformation. Such examples of my values include trust, openness, collaboration, creativity, and reflective practice. So, the four values that I chose to talk about today, although I have many more, are compassion, integrity, inclusion, and reflection. So, compassion, I looked at building a safe, holistic, respectful space for my students to come into my classroom where they were going to feel seen and heard. Integrity was being honest with myself and with others, be it my colleagues and my students, even though when it is difficult. Inclusion was when I noticed that students were left out and actively taking steps to invite them into the discussion or the activities or whatever task was at hand. And then finally, reflection was when I remained open to learning, even from discomfort. So, why these values matter to me was that they're the foundation of my identity as a teacher. So, I'd say we all have had those moments in the classroom when we were a student and we seen, oh, I'd love to be that teacher when I grow up. So different values that they have. So my values, they don't just shape me, but they make me be who like I want to be as a teacher as such. So in moments of pressure or complexity, they help me return to what matters the most. So it's the students in the room and the rapport between me and them. They offer a compass for me in everyday life, for the chaos that school brings, and they anchor me when I'm stretched thin or unsure. They remind me that education is not just this transaction, it's a human process and it's rooted in trust, care, and shared growth. And when I act from these values, I feel most aligned, not just with my students, but with myself as well. So, how I see my values in the classroom. So, I look at compassion first, and it's how I try to respond with kindness before correction, especially when the students act out in the class or when students can't grasp the concepts that I'm trying to teach. So, sometimes I struggle with my values, naturally enough, but it's something I'm working on and it's something I'm learning. Integrity then is when I admit that I've made a mistake or do not have all the answers. So, both in the mathematical content, so when I was starting teaching the new applied maths course, this happened quite a bit, but I always had to say, I'll come back to you, I'll check that, and I'll get back to you with the answer. Inclusion then actively asking when or whose voice have I not heard yet today, and asking them to get involved in the discussion and involved in the activity that we're doing. I also use student feedback to adapt to my teaching and let them know that that's what I'm doing. So it makes like the learning a shared experience and shared journey between me and the students. And then finally, reflection. So I embed reflective prompts or questions into the lesson, inviting students to think about how they're learning, not just their performance. So how they face challenges and give themselves notes for future challenges. And likewise with my own. So like with my scheme of work there, I would reflect on it and I would note for this time next year, oh, to teach it this way instead of this way, or likewise for my research. So, questioning my assumptions then. So, firstly, I question myself all the time. I think it might even be just a culture thing in Ireland, but I doubt and question myself all the time. So, do I assume my way of good teaching is actually the right thing to do, and is it universally right? And the second thing I've written down here are the voices or needs I overlook without realizing it. So, are there things in the classroom that I miss by accident? And when I'm more concerned with performance as opposed to connection. So, to deepen my practice, then I try to continue to document and reflect, not just react. So, be it the reflection in the half an hour drive home from school, or be it writing down in the scheme of work, as I've previously said, I try to reflect and document this and not just react to it, take note of it for the next time that I face such a challenge. I stay curious and inquiry, as we previously mentioned, about what surprises or unsettles me in my day-to-day teaching, and I also learn from my mistakes and my experiences. So, three things there that I have learned as a researcher. So, values are not static. So, I've learned that my values, they're malleable, they change, they shift, and most clearly, they're not simply through what I claim to believe, but how I respond to different scenarios and experiences under the time pressure and constraints that I face in the classroom. about action research, then it's as much about becoming as it is improving. So the process of this action research study has helped me to not only refine my professional practice, but also reshape how I understand myself and how I act in the classroom as an educator and as a thinker. And the third thing there then is the self-inquiry is an ethical act. So looking honestly and critically at my own assumptions and actions is not always comfortable, but it is critical and it's really important. I've become to understand that meaningful change begins not with techniques or strategy, but with the self-awareness that comes with researching. So to encourage myself to question my actions and what I might otherwise accept unquestioningly. So to conclude my presentation there, so as I reflected on this journey, particularly making this presentation, I've come to understand that my values aren't just fixed principles that I write down or that I made on this presentation, but they are lived, they're tested, and they're redefined every day through my interactions with my students. So compassion, integrity, inclusion, and reflection are not just ideas that I've spoke about today. They shape how I want to teach and how I need to research, how to grow. When I fall short, they do call me back, and when I feel uncertain, they give me direction. And that was just really important throughout my interventions and through my cycles. This action research process hasn't always given me perfect answers. As Emer said, like you'll always get that curveball when you see something just what you're not expecting when you're gathering your data. But it has deepened my awareness, it's sharpened my questioning skills, and it's so that living my values is both the aim and the method of this study.
Good.
So, my reflection then, so I just was asked to have a few prompts, I suppose, of reflection for the discussion, which I think is about now. So what values guide your teaching, and how do you know they're present in your own practice in your classroom? Can you recall a moment when your values were challenged in the classroom, and how did you respond to this? And finally, what helps you notice the things you normally overlook in your practice?
Good.
So that was me. Thanks very
Thank you.
much
Thank
for
you. Thank you.
listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ciara, and
No
great
problem.
questions indeed for us to look at there. I really felt you must have had an insight into Marilyn's presentation, because so many of your ideas dovetailed into her ideas there.